Right. It's good to have Jody with us. I'm not sure if you met her, Teresa, when you were here Sunday, or everybody
No, I
got.
didn't get to.
She was visiting.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Glad to have her back in the Lenten study. All right. So last week, right, I think I began by saying that when you focus intently upon something, patterns and formations like rock formations. But when you look at a theme, a theme begins to emerge when you stare at something. And once that has emerged, you start seeing it everywhere. It seems to be a case with spiritual truths that once you come across something, it continues to grow and develop. That's true with other things, but spiritual truths are the example we're using. Certain concepts run through Scripture, through life experiences and spiritual understanding, and they crisscross. Where they cross, there's kind of like this energy where they meet. Over time, various pieces, seemingly unrelated stories scattered with abandon, seem to be pulled together and connected by this common thread or common idea. I convinced everybody of that, right? Well, that happens until it doesn't. Until it doesn't. And the case in point that it doesn't was this evening's topic on fullness. When I sat down to compile my notes on Thursday morning for this session, I didn't have any. I'd used every, I told you everything I know about canyons and made some up. And there wasn't a single note left in the 16 pages of notes on fullness.
It was empty.
It was empty. I came up empty when it came to fullness. So I didn't know what to do, really. And went home Thursday evening, and I think I even told Diane, so we might have already finished Wednesday because I don't really want to work on it this weekend. And, you know, so I don't want to go out on a low note. So we might stop on empty. We might have run out of gas.
Did you get stuck?
I was, you know, so you know what I did? I went and got an Andy's. Went to Andy's, had a frozen custard, and on the way home, it hit me. And I sat back down while everybody else was eating their ice cream at home and jotted out the whole outline. It might not be much, but it's more than I had. And just had to look at it from a different perspective and a different angle. And that helps sometimes. And Andy's never hurts. So if you're stuck, go have Andy's. So I had to look at it from a different perspective. Um, Fullness, you see, and literally, I looked at all the resources that I normally go to for theme ideas or to trace down themes. Nothing, nothing. Okay, just a random verse here. Um, so fullness is not a quantity. This is what Andy taught me. Okay, Andy's frozen. Fullness is not about quantity. It's about quality. Quality. Okay, so stay with me. Fullness is not a static achievement, and it's not registered with a needle hitting F. Okay, it's not you fill up and you've made it. You've arrived. That's not what fullness means in Canyon spirituality. Um, it's rather a continual full force flowing, an unimpeded flow that is a full force flow. And here's even more of a kicker. Filling is not our effort. Filling is something that's passive when it comes to our spirituality. We don't fill ourselves with knowledge. We don't even fill ourselves with experience. We empty ourselves And the fullness is God's part. And that fullness, once there is this emptiness, we've unloaded. What all have we unloaded? Our past guilt and shame. We've unloaded past mistakes and stories. We've come to terms. We've looked at what's formed us, both positive influences and forces. We looked at negative influences and forces. We empty that all out. And with the psalmist, we confess the sin. We do all of that. And that's our work. And then as it's emptied, it bubbles up as all that emptiness is opening, the fullness of God goes to the depths of who we are and fills us. And it's a passive thing. We receive that filling. We don't do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally makes sense to me.
So Teresa, well, I don't know. Does this make sense to you, Teresa, in that it's just like breathing, respirations. You've done body work, and or maybe even people who are in sports or running. Any runners? Anybody with a history of running?
Did a 5K. I don't know if I'm a runner, but I did a 5K.
A 5K qualifies you. So when you're running and you think that you can't breathe, what's the problem?
Probably a slow your breathing down and you make a pattern with your breathing.
Okay, there's the key word, pattern. What has happened when you can't breathe, you can't get a breath? That's because your lungs are full, not empty. And the key to being able to breathe is the exhaling. When you get the lungs completely empty, you don't have to breathe in. It's a vacuum and the air is just automatically sucked in. Okay. Barry, it works the same thing with motorcycles. You want to go faster, you bore out the exhaust. Am I right?
That and twist that throttle.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mind went to focus. You have to focus.
Yeah. And you kind of you have to get all of the exhaust out before the engine can do its work. So you bore out the exhaust. And so that's the way it is spiritually too. It's just a physical principle that applies to spirituality. The more emptiness we can have, that's our part. That contributes to the full force of God filling us. And it's a passive receiving it. All we have to do is be empty and willing to receive that fullness. So there you are. Thank you, Mr. Andy. That's not all I got, but that's about it. We'll look at how this applies and as we think about it. Fullness is about knowing more clearly the presence of God and the essence of God. Okay. So there's a quote from C.G. Jung. It says, "Your visions will become clear only when you look inside your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." You put he in front of that since you're not a poet. He who looks outside dreams. You imagine things, you're projecting. Okay. But when you look inside, you awaken. Okay, so that's loosely related, and we'll get to some things if you think I'm stretching it here to find support for my idea. It gets a little bit closer as we go on. So the other word that was kind of imprinted in the tea leaves in my Andy's custard was resonance. Resonance is basically just seeing clearly and being seen clearly. So that's what the emptiness does. You're not afraid if you're empty, all that you're trying to hide and all that's buried and all of the past is empty. You don't mind people seeing inside you now. Before, you got all kinds of walls built up to protect yourself and to hide everything you want to keep hidden. But when you're empty, you let people in. They can see that. Okay. And the same way, you can see others more clearly. So it's a resonance and a connection. And that's a key word. Maria, I don't know if you remember that word or not, that resonates with you. But that's from Andrew Root's Congregational Vitality. And people, that's another theme. People are starting to write about that. He was the first one I saw 6 years ago. But people are starting to write about that, a resonance. And that replaces the other word, relevance. Churches try to be relevant, and what people are hungry for is a resonance where they can be seen for who they are and have a genuine encounter with God. Okay? So they don't have to have a guard up. They're received into community, and they can be who they are and can begin to relate to other people with resonance, no barriers, and open as a community. Okay, so resonance is an important word, which kind of just means seeing clearly without barriers or blurred perception and letting yourself be seen without any barriers or pretensions or masks or other kinds of performances or roles that we hide behind. Is it starting to be seen clearly? Okay, but that starts with and results from emptying yourself. So I wondered, was this making sense after the ice cream had digested? And I thought of, what does this sound like? And can I fact check what I'm thinking? And you got to thinking, it sounds a whole lot like Howard Thurman. And if you discover you're walking in his tracks accidentally, you're all okay. It's a good, you're on the right path. Howard Thurman was an African-American theologian. He was the spiritual anchor of the civil rights movement. Without him, there would have never been a Martin Luther King Jr. He never marched, but he was the spiritual guide for the whole civil rights movement. And so this is the quote that came to mind from Howard Thurman. Being stripped, so God in you can be seen before you. So that's the emptiness, being stripped, taking down all the barriers, all of the filters that you're looking through. So when that comes down, the divine spirit in you can see God in other things and see that reflection. It's not clouded, or you're not projecting your own fears onto, anybody, whether it's the devil or your enemy or something you're scared of. You're not projecting your fears on there because you've been stripped of all of those things. So it lets the fullness of God in you. Then what you start to see, all of a sudden, is fullness of God in others. Okay? Want an example? How about an example? Right? Example.
Yeah.
All right, we know the story of Jacob and Esau. Okay? Twins.
Maybe run through it really quick.
Huh?
Maybe run through it really quick.
Okay. Twins. Esau's the oldest, and Jacob was born holding his heel. And that's why he was called Jacob, the grabber, who would take what he could get and hold on, right? He was a trickster. The name also means trickster. So they grew up, and then so in their culture, they were Isaac's sons, and the oldest got the family blessing and most of the inheritance. So Jacob wanted that inheritance, and he was going to grab what was his and what was everybody else's. So he's the guy who sold his brother, traded his brother a pot of soup for his birthright when his brother was in the field hunting, and then tricked his blind father into thinking that he was Esau and got the family blessing. So Esau not real happy, and he gonna get revenge. He's gonna kill his brother, so he's the only child. He got his and uh, Jacob's. So Esau runs away.
Esau runs away.
Jacob runs away. Thank you.
Mhm.
Jacob runs away, lives a whole nother life, marries daughters of Laban, and on and on and on. Well, getting bored with the games he's playing, okay, he goes back to make amends with Esau. All right. And along the way, he has a dream and wrestles with a man, okay, whether that's an angel or he probably in his nightmares figured it was Esau coming to meet him, you know. So he doesn't know what to do, but he wrestles all night and will not relent the fight until the man blesses him. His name is changed to Israel because he's striven with God and prevailed. Okay, we're caught up. That's the backstory. So now Esau doesn't know, Jacob doesn't know how Esau is going to receive him. Not sure what is about to go down. This is from an old sermon, but it still hits, still tracks.
It's still the same story.
Yeah. Jacob's not sure what is about to go down. He's not even sure how to pull it off. The verses preceding this passage find Jacob asking himself, should I send a gift? Should I employ a defensive strategy with an escape plan? He would do all the above and hope for the best because he wanted to be reconciled to Esau. And there's a change in Esau that may be the issue which opened Jacob's eyes and heart to see and understand God, not as he thought God was, but for who God truly was. Before, he'd had a dream also as he's running away from Esau, and it was kind of, let's make a deal, God. You know, if you will bring me back here, I will honor you and obey you. If, let's make a deal. He's the conniver. So now, because he wants to unload this, he wants to empty this hostility. He wants to empty his guilt. He wants to empty this all out and be reconciled with Esau. So now he sees God more clearly as he's going back. Having seen God more clearly, prepares Jacob to see Esau more clearly. Before Jacob had seen Esau as a score or a target, a game to be played. When he had last seen Esau wanted to kill him in revenge for tricking him out of the father's birthright and family blessing. Jacob knew he had changed, but he could not imagine that Esau had. Okay, he had done his work of digging, but he figured Esau probably still pretty ticked. Jacob had the idea that everyone he encountered, including God, was out for a deal or to settle scores. That's the filter he's looking through. That's how he saw the world. Having seen a new face of God, one of forgiveness, one of mercy and grace and blessing, Jacob was now free to see Esau, not through the shadows, who he thought Esau to be, but for who Esau really was. Now listen to what he says when he sees Esau. If we were to read ahead of the suspenseful encounter between Jacob and Esau, Jacob tells Esau that to see his face is like seeing the face of God. Saw him clearly. The shadows had fallen now, and Jacob saw in Esau a divine likeness, saw forgiveness and grace. Same thing he'd seen in God. It filled up in him. So that's what he's seeing in others. Boom. Boom. So when we empty these things, Or as 2 Corinthians puts it, 2 Corinthians 3:18, our unveiled gaze receives and reflects the brightness of God. We don't see that when we have all these bones in our valley, in our hidden bones, in our skeletons in the closet. We unload all that, we can see God clearly and begin to reflect the brightness of God ourselves. Okay? Now, how that goes with canyons, there's a quote from Lago's Canyon book, the Grand Canyon book. If the intensity, he says, floating down the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon, if the intensity of this sky, this river, this canyon could not induce a greater intensity in me, I was not sure whatever would. So if we can see God clearly, if that won't produce a greater intensity in us, what would ever do that? Okay. Never, another thing clicked in my mind going through this and trying to work it out. Remember when we talked about that confusing part about creation coming in and borrowing your eyes and looking at itself for the first time? Sounds a lot like that. For the first time, the God in you starts to see the God before you, because there's not all this gunk and impeding the flow and brightness of God. So you have this full force of God within you. So for the first time, the brief moment, needle doesn't stay on full, but for that brief moment, you begin to see the fullness of God in others and through other experiences, encounters. We'll have another example of that happening, of how it happens in a minute. Being seen by others, it sounds vulnerable, but when you think about it, well, we don't want others to really get close to us. Maybe being seen in that way might be the meaning and the purpose we're looking for in life. To be who we truly are at the core of our being. If the skeletons are gone, because what's left is the fullness of God. Wouldn't it be nice for people to look at you and see the fullness of God's light and compassion? Why try to hide that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her comment for the night. Yeah. Yeah. I'll write that down in my notes. Yeah. And then what about this verse from 1 Corinthians? The first part, love is kind and all that, right? Though I speak with tongues of angels, but have not love, I'm nothing. Sounding gong. But the end of the chapter says, for now we see through a glass darkly. Then we will see face to face. Now I know partially, but then I will know completely in the same way that I have been completely known. Standing about standing before God in fullness. That's fullness. And it's something that we receive. We receive it by emptying. It requires only that we're willing to be empty, to do the work of digging ourselves empty, hollowing it out, and then receiving the fullness of God's love. So if you're wise, and we are, right? Mm-hmm. If you're wise, since you are wise, if can be translated since usually. It's a conditional clause, but it can usually be translated since. Since you are really wise, you'll think this over. It's time that you appreciated God's deep love. It's our Sunday school verse, right? on the banner of the mural. Anybody have any comments or reflection on that before we see another application of this?
What's in my head is just how busy we get and consumed with minutia that there's no time to think about reflecting God's love. You get so focused on.
Our lives are too full already.
Yeah, right.
There's no room left. And we work very hard to fill up every minute and every second with sound and productivity and effort, and we fill it all up.
Cram it all in there.
And the light can't penetrate that. The living water can't bubble up because it's concrete. It's packed in so tight. But the openness, that's depths of God's love filled. So here's another application. Now this, I didn't check the exegesis on this. This is a paraphrase of Luke 1:46-55. This is Mary's song, the Magnificat, before the birth of Jesus, when she finds out that she is going to bear God's son, Magnificat. So you can kind of, if you're familiar with Magnificat, you can kind of think about it, but if not, that's not necessary. Just listen to the story of what she says. So I didn't check the exegesis on this, but it's called a modern Magnificat, according to Luke 1:46-55. So picture Mary singing this song. My soul sings in gratitude. I'm dancing in the mystery of God. The light of the Holy One is within me, and I am blessed, so truly blessed. This goes deeper than human thinking. I'm filled with awe at love whose only condition is to be received. The gift is not for the proud, for they have no room for it. The strong and the self-sufficient ones don't have this awareness. But those who know their emptiness can rejoice in love's fullness, in the love that we are made for, the reason for our being. It fills our innermost heart space and brings to birth in us the Holy One. It's pretty much the Song of Mary, but it uses all the right terms to fit. And I found that on a Saturday morning. So then the formation starts to take place. Once it's there, you're looking from the right perspective, it starts appearing in all these places. So from Saturday morning's devotion, and here was the introduction to that. That, written, by the way, was written by Joy Cowley. And it was on Abbey of the Arts. Ultimately, so the introduction to that day's reflection was from, it's Christine Walters Paintner. And she says, ultimately, Benedict, or Saint Benedict, the Benedict who started the Benedictine monks, who developed a whole spiritual discipline and path. Ultimately, Benedict calls us to a life of deepened wisdom that comes through this kind of reverent attention to all life brings. The ability to welcome all of life and stay present to it is what carves out wisdom in the deepest parts of our being and helps us come to know the depth of mystery at the heart of things. Get all those words in there, carving out the depth and being filled with that wisdom. And Marita, you're not always busy. There are times, I'm sure, that you are able to hold more. You're not filled up with life. There are times you have more of a awareness of God's fullness. All of us have those flashes. Again, the need's not going to stay on F. It's not going to stay there because we drop rocks in, and now that displaces the space reserved for God's fullness. Over time, they accumulate, and there's less and less. But when was a time that you knew more God's fullness, even for a brief second? What kind of experiences or a specific encounter? What does it take for you to know more fully the force of God's presence?
I have my kids.
And you had your kids? That'll do it.
Those times when I'm going back to old Lenten studies, but the times that make you say, oh,
Exactly.
that's,
Yeah.
but
So you say, oh, because why?
maybe it's,
It's right in front of you. You just
Yeah.
got it. Like,
yeah, and moments of awe, and it can be a
We
lot of
say
different
they
things.
take our breath away.
Mhm. There it is. Uh-huh.
Ah,
Right.
and you had with children, having children, I'm assuming there was some pain involved.
yes.
Okay, so that given physically all of yourself with life, emptying.
Yes.
What about music?
Mhm.
Kind of opens up sensitivity in a different sphere. It hollows something out, makes room for something besides the busyness. Sitting on a stump works for me. Just the vastness of the woods and whatever season it is, just the spaciousness just is, it takes my breath away. It takes me into something bigger. It opens a space in me. You know, I seem to reflect the openness of space that is before me, and within me, it just, that mirror thing, that cycle of opening up. Anybody else have any experiences of encountering the awareness, a fuller force of God's presence?
I think for me, it's like, this is gonna be really silly, but dancing in the rain. Like every time I dance in the rain, I just feel like everything else about life has not mattered except for this very moment where I can just be like my 100% childish, hopeful, joyous self, right? And just like you're saying, like emptying out all of the things that make you want to reserve in a way, right? Like, nope, I'm jumping in
Inhibitions.
this puddle, right? And I'm just
Yeah.
gonna let myself like wildly enjoy this moment.
Emptying
So-
inhibitions.
Yeah. And it's just like all of the things that, and in a way, this is maybe part of the emptying. It kind of feels like it washes away all of the things that I'm carrying before that moment. Right. And it's like I can just release so much in that moment and just enjoy something that just lights my soul up. I don't know how else to describe it. It just feels like I'm ignited inside.
So
Yeah.
it does feel good. Yeah.
Give you a chance.
It's going right on the way home.
Wind does the same thing.
Mhm.
Just sitting in the, a wind tunnel on a mesa or a rim of a canyon, and just unceasing wind. What about relationships, friendships, where you can just share anything and talk and be yourself, and there's no pretension, and you can be open and honest? Again, it's emptying, laying down all of that. And in that moment, you're experiencing a connection with another person, but you're also experiencing connection with God and yourself. Just the quote, I sought my soul I could not see. I sought my God also eluded me. Sought my brother, I found all three. seeing clearly, that fullness. We can't, we can't, we can't human wise, humanity and character, we can't always have that needle on full. And we certainly can't even get it to full by grabbing all of these emotional experiences or encounters and packing those in there. It has to be stuff that empties us for the needle to move. And it won't stay there because we're human. Other things go on. We have fears, we have challenges, we have struggles, we have physical pain, we have all kinds of things. But emptying that out, back to full.
I think I'm always stuck on death every time we go through these things. But when my mother was dying, it was like God just came and talked to me, and I think of the emptiness, the sadness, and it was just like he was there talking to me, and peace, was coming, just filled me up, where everything emptied and filled back up in a positive way, and that has always stayed with me. And I really wasn't quite.
Grief emptied you.
Mhm. And
Comfort filled you.
yes. And I don't know that I was really agreeing with you that it can't stay full. Maybe I'd say it doesn't stay totally full, but I don't think once you've had those experiences and let God into your heart, I don't think you totally go empty. I mean, it hasn't been that way for me. It's still
Well.
there.
There's one guy, we'll read his quote soon. So, my God, why have you forsaken me? But yet that emptiness might have been the fullness that got him out of the tomb. Even Christ had to be physically emptied, human-wise, to encounter that awareness and presence of God that raised him up. And I'm not arguing with that, but I'm just saying, no, I think this fullness is a renewable resource.
Okay.
And you have to have an ongoing spiritual discipline of emptying it out, whether that's through Bible study and prayer, through worship, through service, through giving and stewardship, an emptying of ourselves and all that we hold on to, a renewable resource to continue to hit that needle more. A continual renewed resource, the living water.
I kind of think of it like a canyon, kind of reconciling what both of you are saying. I'm gonna bring it back to the canyon thing though, but like you were talking about how we build up walls, right? And so like to Linda's point, I think once God fills you in a way, you get like a chip out of the wall, like a chunk is taken out, right? So then the light behind the wall is shining through a little more. But throughout our lives, other things happens where we keep building, we might build over that hole again, or maybe the next thing takes out a bigger chunk. So kind of when you were both talking, I kind of envisioned it that way of right, like each time we're emptying and being filled with God to let him kind of lurk in those cracks. I really like the lurking God thing.
Last week, remember the 13.
But right, it's like he's lurking there waiting for the crack so the light can start shining. So you empty out a piece, boom, you hit it with a bulldozer a little bit, right? And then God can shine through. And that doesn't mean that you're ever fully empty, but maybe something else happens and the wall starts building back up a little more and the rock starts to build. Or maybe you take another big blow at that and you keep emptying. And that will determine how much your light can continue to shine or how much you feel the despair and forsakenness, right? Because if you build the wall back up over the hole and there's no more cracks, you're going to feel forsaken again.
So what's the old country song, Diane? Sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug. So maybe sometimes you're the rock and sometimes you're the canyon. Sometimes you're the rock that life throws into the canyon, and sometimes you're the canyon that wants to be open, and life throws rocks into you and fills you up and takes out space for the fullness. But it comes down to our spiritual disciplines, our paths, tried and true, Benedict's and everybody else's, to empty out ourselves, to release the things in our lives that no longer serve us so the light of God can fill us. That's a line from Christine Boltner's fire prayer. But that's our spiritual disciplines. The Lenten season is to dig this out, clean this out, but it's an ongoing daily process, patterned growth. That the canyon, one of the forces, the spiritual disciplines are the forces that carve us out to hold more of the fullness of God. That's canyons. That's all I know about them, and then some. So they're created, shaped by the forces of God, creation itself, and a mirror for us. And they call us to change our lives. But they assure us that even if we get to the bottom of the canyon, we haven't got to the bottom of the mystery of God. So here's a little quote from Gibran, and then we'll take any final comments and have prayer. The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup, boy, I can't type, is not the cup that holds your wine, the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven. It is not the lute that soothes your spirit, the very wood that was hollowed with knives. Only when you are empty are you at a standstill and balanced, or I would change humbly, change Gibran's words. Only when you are empty can you be filled. Any closing comments? Zoomers, got anything to say?
No.
I have this little story when Lydia was talking about death that, boy, it popped into my head when my sister was dying. My mom was still alive, so I was very concerned about her. And my sister has a daughter, my niece, who has Down syndrome. And she was there. We were at Kitty's house, and my mom said she may still be breathing, but she's gone. I know she's gone. And not 2 minutes later, Tracy's sitting on their bed next to the hospital bed. Kitty's still breathing and everything. And Tracy suddenly looks to the ceiling, and I can't do the eye darting thing that she did. There's no way to explain it. Her eyes darted all around the ceiling as fast as they could go. And she was just going, Mom, 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 Mom. And that was such a neat moment in that grief. And that was God's presence there with us, carrying us through. Such a moment I'll always remember.
Well, that was some ice cream you ate.
2 scoops of vanilla.
You didn't even want to go that day, did you?
No, I did not. Did not want to go. I was.
You was ready to go to bed.
Well, doesn't that speak to our reluctancy to clear out some of the space?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, here's a closing prayer. I don't know how to say his first name, Tagore. O filler of hearts, what abundance, what spiritual riches you contain. You plead daily, wider, wider, unblock your constricted heart. You constantly implore, open, open, open to receive my gifts. When my heart does finally release and receive your outpouring love, precious gifts come flowing forth from your generous heart into mine. Thanks, guys. It's been a good year. Good.
That was interesting. Thank you.
Can we tell who the Zoom person is?
Well, I guess this is.
Yeah. Cause he did it once.